You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tatah. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa. Wonderful. Greetings, beloved family, Pan-African Daily TV. It's another beautiful day on Pan-African Daily TV here. And we have a very important topic that we want to touch into. I want to thank all of you that are joining this conversation and this lectures for tonight, because we have three big Pan-African speakers, intellectuals, scholars, politicians, cultural activists, and the people that are on the ground for the liberation of Africa by Africans, even from the past till today. So today, like I said, is going to be a game changer, as Pan-African Daily TV actually focuses on the agenda and the manifestos of the individual countries' political parties as they look forward into the elections coming just ahead of time. So today, please, I'm asking you to join me, or please let's welcome, Dr. Charles Mubita. He's going to talk about himself, his work, everything that he's been achieving. And then we have, of course, our brother and our king, Joshua Maponga, who actually is also, accompanying Dr. Mubita to add his voice to Swapo, Namibia's leading party, on their manifesto about the agenda they have for their people and for Africa and Africans at home and abroad. So it's a wonderful day today on Pan-African Daily. We're beginning to get into the substance of our conversations. We're beginning to actually dig into getting political education. We've talked about cultural education. We've talked about other social stuff. We've talked about slavery and colonization and decolonization lectures, what we do here on Pan-African Daily. Now is icing the cake. Africans at home and abroad need to understand how these individual countries got their independence, and what is the agenda that they have as a common agenda, a Pan-African agenda for Africa, the Africa that we want. So we want to thank all of you that are joining, as I will invite our honorable guest on the show today. And as we say, once you join the show, please make sure you click and share and invite one another to be with us here. So I'm first of all going to bring Dr. Charles Mubita and also King Maponga. They are all here. They're ready. They're set. They want to deliver. They are ready to deliver the agenda. Like our topic today says, Namibia sets the agenda. Namibia sets the agenda. Just from the topic itself, it's very inquisitive. Like it's like mouth watering. It's like Namibia sets which agenda? As a matter of fact, a Pan-African agenda, of course. So we're very happy to have this new renaissance of Africa by Africans, and also to get to dig into the history of Swapo, and we understand that a lot has been going on since the liberation movement, but Africans don't know, particularly the Africans that we are building now. It's a whole education that they have to get: political education, economic education. These are the two key pathway to the Africa we want. So please, I thank all of you that are joining. Thank you so much. You're already almost 100 that are watching. We didn't even just, so I know everybody is anticipating to meet these beautiful, great things of Africa that are changing, not just the narrative. Because like King Maponga says it, and he told me today, said, Dr. I'm done with, oh, we want to make Africa great, this and this. We are touching We are entering into the belly of the situation right now. It's now or never. So thank you so much. I want to get back into studio. And if all of you missed this introduction, I don't know what you'll be waiting. Greetings, Dr. Charles Mubita, our big Pan-African brother, our big Pan-African leader, I mean, those that are putting their face on the continent and say, we want it now or never. Greetings, Dr. Mobita.
Thank you very much. Greetings from me too.
Wonderful. And I want to greet our king, the CEO of Farmers of Thought, the CEO of Maponga Court, the CEO of Maponga National, the CEO of Find Your Truth, the CEO, I mean, like the watcher from the past into the future, sitting right here. Our king, you've been doing an amazing work. A lot of people are asking, how come you get yourself engaged into Swapo Namibia? Like these questions are bubbling in everybody's mind, and we are looking forward to actually have you today. We're happy to share your knowledge and your impressions about the One Africa. Thank you very much. So I'll go back to Dr. Charles. King Maponga, you want to greet and say something? All right, have to go back to Dr. Charles. Doctor, how are you? How's your day
I'm very
been?
well, thank you. Good, good.
Yeah.
I'm very well. I'm very well.
Wonderful. So what good news brings you to us today?
Well, I believe you basically wanted, first of all, to have a brief history about Swapo before we delve into the many issues of today, which is the manifesto of the Swapo Party. Now, Swapo, in brief, was established on the 19th of April 1960 by workers. It was not established by intellectuals. It was established by workers who understand the toil of the soil. And because of its intended aim to liberate Namibia, life was made very difficult for the leaders of the Swapo Party. Many were arrested, and then others decided to go into exile. Our very founding president left 1962, but I don't want to go deep into that. In exile, Swapo established three fronts. There was the diplomatic front to try to negotiate independence. And there was a military front to confront the enemy militarily. And then there was political front, which was to mobilize the people of Namibia to engage in that struggle. However, now that was contextually waging a liberation struggle on the political front. However, in 1969, from 26 December up to the 2nd of January 1970, Swapo changed the dynamics and started planning for an economic liberation of Namibia while waging a military struggle and waging a political struggle. Started now conceptualizing and setting policy on how Namibia would be liberated economically. And that you can find it if you were to go to the first Congress of the Swapo Party that was held from 26 December to the 2nd of January 1970. Resolution number 7 of that Congress. Resolution number 7 pointed out two things. One was the Arusha Declaration. The Arusha Declaration on self-sufficiency and land reform. Okay. The other was the Mulungushi reform. Now, these two set the tone for the Swapo Party in terms of preparing for an economic liberation. The Arusha Declaration is on land and self-sufficiency. And it was from that particular week that we actually had in that Congress elected a leadership that was going to plan for that economic liberation, including land reform. The Mulungushi reforms were basically the reforms of Zambia to take over mines, especially the copper mines from Rio Tinto and the British companies. And that reform at Mulungushi was to do that. And we realized we also needed, when we get our liberation, our political liberation, we need to embark on an economic liberation where we'll have to take over the affairs of the economy of our country. Well, that is briefly there, but after that, in 1966, on 26 August, Swapo decided to actually engage the enemy militarily. So the People's Liberation Army of Namibia combatants, previously it was SWALA and the Southwest Africa Liberation Army, and then came NAPLA and came whatever, until it became PLAN. But the military struggle started in 1966. Throughout this time, the diplomatic front also continued with a number of resolutions passed by the United Nations. Up to the time, Swapo was recognized as the sole, authentic, and legitimate representative of the Namibian people. Now, fast forward, in 1988, the liberation struggle became very intense, to an extent that the South African army realized they could not sustain, no matter how mighty their military equipment were and the resolute of their soldiers, they couldn't. You know of the Battle of Quito Canavale. The Cubans joined in, the Angolans joined in, and they gave up. They basically surrendered and then accepted to implement Resolution 435. Okay. Resolution 435. Now, that's a diplomatic weapon which Swapo had waged. There were a number of other resolutions which were pushed by Swapo and the frontline states. Now, the frontline states at the time, it was Nigeria, far removed from Southern Africa, but very, very, very active in the liberation of Namibia, liberation of Zimbabwe, liberation of Mozambique, liberation of Angola, right? But the frontline states were composed of Nigeria, Zambia, Tanzania. When they got independence, Mozambique and Angola, and when Zimbabwe got independence, Zimbabwe. Now, these pushed through the diplomatic front. They assisted us. That's why we normally say Namibia is a child of the international community, because through that, Resolution 385 of 1978 was adopted, followed by a number of other resolutions until we came to Resolution 435, which paved the way for the diplomatic, breakthrough for Namibia's independence. So we got independence in 1990 through armed struggle, through political struggle, through military struggle. That is one struggle that we have achieved. Now we are independent with a flag, with a constitution, with a government elected by the people. But it took us 30 years, from 1960 to 1990, to complete a political struggle and gain political independence. And even in 1990, we were sure and prepared that the economic struggle is not going to be a walk in the path. It's not a walk in the park. It's not a Sunday picnic. Okay? It will not be that. it will take more years than the political struggle. That's why today the Swapo Party still maintains that the economic liberation will be achieved gradually, but it will be achieved. So roughly, that is in context of what the Swapo Party is. It's a party, the only party in Namibia that was born from the desires of the people to achieve political independence, which was achieved, and economic independence.
Wonderful. I mean, everybody has heard about Swapo in Namibia, Frelimo in Mozambique. I mean, we hear even the freedom fighters like Professor James Small, Malcolm X, and all this liberation freedom movement from since before the creation of the organization of the African Unity, because this is a party that was formed in 1960. I think after all this liberation fight, that was actually what brought you or the leaders at that time to meet in Addis Ababa so that they can continue, the liberation movement. Am I correct, Dr. Mubita?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
It took us that long. It took us that long. But we were brothers and sisters. I'll just cite for you one instance. Maybe if you go to Tanzania, there's a place called Kongwa. Swapo was the first, when the African Liberation Committee was established in 1963. It was there to harness support for the liberation movement. And also with Brigadier Hashim Victor of Tanzania, who took over the reins of the African Liberation Committee, to ensure that we train military personnel to take over from these countries that we claim. Now, I'm saying this because Swapo was the first to be accommodated at the Kongwa military training camp. Then followed Frelimo. And you might also realize that Frelimo was never established in Mozambique. Frelimo was founded and established in Tanzania. There were 3 political parties in Tanzania that were all fighting for the independence of Mozambique. However, the 3 were antagonists at the same time. But Nyerere intervened and made sure that the 3 became one. And that's how Frelimo was established. Frelimo followed us in Kongwa. Then came the ANC, then came MPLA, then came PAC, then came ZANU-PF. ZAPU was on the periphery because, unfortunately, they could not see eye to eye with ZANU-PF. All right? So I am citing this to say that no wonder the southern part of Africa is so peaceful, because we are brothers who stayed together in same camps, same trenches, leaving the same camp, going different directions to fight. Right? And also, I think this is important to this particular discussion because we need to contextualize any discussion that we have. And this is the mistake that many intellectuals, premature politicians, and others, that we jump to the far end of a discussion without interrogating where this discussion came from.
Yes.
So similarly, when we discuss about the manifesto and all that, I'll get to that when that time comes. We need to locate the origin, because Swapo is not a project. It's not a project that's conceived from a political party. It is an original political party. established by Namibians themselves, and whose history and whose mission is still alive.
That's very important. That's very important and key to what you're saying, because sometimes when we talk about the liberation of Africa, we don't go to the roots. Most political or consultants or those that just came in the middle, or intellectuals, particularly intellectuals, when they come study about it without going to the roots to understand even Pan-Africanism, to understand it, it is impossible for us without going into this route. I want to get to King Maponga, because, like you said, we had the ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe. And at that time, that spirit of community, that communism, like Dr. Mubita is saying, they stayed in the same camp, like brothers and sisters, left and went to individual camps to fight to get their independence for one another as a community, as a Pan-Africanist, as one Africa. I mean, that opinion today is not. What must have gone wrong, King Maponga?
Thank you very much for that very, very interesting and quite an important summary of the liberation of Swapo. And one thing that I am picking up is the common enemy and the common struggle and the neighborly love of neighboring countries, particularly Tanzania. I think Mwalimu Julius Nyerere really deserves, particularly in the South here, to be called the father of many of our independence as African countries, not forgetting, of course, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda. So there is no country in the South, be it South Africa, ANC, be it APLA, be it Swapo, be it ZANU-PF, be it Frelimo, that can begin to talk about the concept of xenophobia and being a foreigner post-independence, when in fact our struggle was the same. I would also want to highlight that the reason for going to war, we had a common enemy, one enemy who had just multiplied himself into the various countries of the South. Basically, you're looking at the white regimes in their various phases, the Portuguese in Mozambique, the British in Zimbabwe, Zambia, and parts of South Africa and Botswana, and you have the Germans and the Afrikaners in Namibia. The painful part is that they even went to an extent of treating countries such as Namibia as provinces of the South African apartheid regime. What we then find is that the principles and the functions of the governments of the day had to pay allegiance to the Afrikaner apartheid regimes. Why am I saying that? We need to locate again that the reason Africans went to war was a basic need and demand, not only for freedom and democracy, but the liberation of their people from oppressive laws. Please underline that. Oppressive laws that restricted the movement and the free movement of people. Very important. Number two, a marginalization of a community away from their own resources. Number three, cruel techniques and militarizations of our countries where you'll be killed if you don't have an ID, even restriction of movement. And at the bottom of it, the bedrock was the issue of land. And I'm glad Dr. Mubita raises that point very efficiently, so that as early as the 60s, the Swapo liberation movement was already discussing the issues of land. However, our fight and battle for land needed to be put in context also of how deep was the commitment of the colonizers in terms of usage, maximizing, and ownership of land. That will lend us into the pot of governance and the laws that they instituted to make sure that they would own that which does not belong to them. The rapid transformation that we are looking for is that the roots of colonization, particularly on land, had sunk so deep that the Afrikaners, the Germans, and the British could now begin to claim that they are second, they are third, and they are fourth generation on our land. And the governance systems, which are the laws, gave them the right to becoming citizens of a country which they had oppressed. Now, this creates a very interesting scenario in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, in Namibia, in Mozambique, in Zambia, and in Malawi, where you now have to share your room, share your house, share your land with the same system and the same people that were victimizing you. They call that democracy. And democracy comes with diplomatic ways of living together. The one question I will have for Swapo and the rest of the African political parties, and by the way, by no means, Dr. Mubita, am I isolating Namibia. My direction will be to look at the composite problem, so that while we are discussing Namibia, we're actually discussing Zimbabwe, we are discussing South Africa, we are discussing Mozambique, Angola, and Zambia, and the rest of the Southern African countries. That we needed to come back and say, how do we legitimize illegitimacy? How do we legalize illegality? How do we normalize abnormality? How do we democratize violence to an extent that we tolerate and manage a complicated system which had actually entrenched its roots into the land, into the economy, and into our very lives and culture? So that when liberation movements came, the slow by slow idea, they managed the process gently, which was wise, by all means, very wise. Two countries come to my mind quickly, that is Mozambique. When they did the rapid change, you know what the Portuguese did? They burned offices, they filled up all the sewage pipes with concrete, they blocked up the offices, poisoned some rivers, messed up the farming tools and equipment, destroyed power stations, destroyed water reticulation stations, and by the time Samora Machel walks into power, you literally have to start from scratch, as it were, to rebuild the infrastructure. On the flip side, you find that the constant negotiation and movement of managing a snake, it keeps on growing, and it keeps on growing, and before you discover it, it starts to eat up your children again, and it starts behaving the same way that it was behaving before colonization. And for me, this has been the plight of our liberation movement, that we went for the gun, we fought, we won. But actually, by winning the political war, we infuriated the economic war, and the international laws and the very governance systems, which we call constitutions, became a hamstring around our necks to reduce the speed of rapid transformation. So you end up with a polarized space where people want things and they want them now. But the political and the democratic side of the people understands the consequences of fast-tracking those processes. And these elections and these campaigns simply sometimes become a tug of war between two sides of the same coin. And having said that, I would say we have not yet completed the battle until we have fully restored the dignity of our people, the land to its rightful owners, and blacks becoming champions of the economy to drive the agenda in the direction that they want it to be. And this, we may take 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, but I can say that loud and clear from a Pan-African space. Burkina Faso, Kenya, the Gen Zs, and other smaller organizations and patriotic leaders are beginning to challenge the status quo of the colonial masters, be it France, be it Belgium, be it the British, be it the Germans, and Africans are beginning to say it's not good enough to negotiate, because through negotiations, we've ended up with a polarized walk softly. In some certain cases, some of our politicians have fallen asleep on while they're on the battlefront. But in a bigger concept, we needed to find an amicable way in which we can drive the agenda for the Africans to become champions of their own economy. I thank you.
Thank you very much, King Maponga. I'll go back. Dr. Mubita, did you want to add something to what he said?
Yes, I would love to. I agree with my brother. See, we were not actually fighting individuals, whether they were whites or puppets, blacks. We're not actually individuals. We're fighting systems, okay, entrenched systems. So we get rid of a political system, whether semi or fully is neither here nor there. But at least you have a black face, you have a black government. All right? Now, systems, to upset a system or to overtake a system, you require discipline amongst those who are supposed to confront that system. When we were waging a political military war against the colonizers, the people that joined the ranks of the military wings of Swapo, ZANU-PF, Frelimo, were people who were determined and had resolved that I am in this camp in the bush, no food, no water, but I am going to soldier on. I'm not going to betray my country. I'm not going to betray my liberation movement until I conquer that. You understand? Now, it's not the same thing as fighting for economic liberation. The little you try, because look, Swapo is a rules-based organization. We respect rules. And when we got independence, there's a constitution, and we have 3 tiers of government: executive, legislature, and the judiciary. Somebody has to make the law, and somebody has to implement that law, and somebody has to interpret that law. Now, if we were to expect the Swapo-led cabinet executive to make decisions bypassing the legislature or contravening the constitution, then you have a serious problem. Now, we know that economic struggle requires discipline, not only from one political party or 2 political parties, but from society. Today, if the Swapo party-led government was to take a particular stand outside the law, the same people that are lambasting the Swapo party will be the first to complain, because whatever stance that you take as a government, particularly if that stance is
King
taken by...
Maponga, can you mute? Okay, go on. Is the sound okay from the audience? Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if that stance is taken by the executive and not following the legislature, there are a few things that might happen. Zimbabwe is a very good example. Sanctions will follow you. So whatever you do, you need to be able to plan properly that we are going to win this war this way. If you don't plan properly, you'll basically be planning to fail, and that will be a disaster for the country. So the economic struggle, all I'm trying to emphasize is that the system, which my brother also spoke about, that we get into government, we get independence, and we are now government, and we still use the same system that oppressed us. Now, what I'm saying is, we got rid of one particular system, which took us 30 years to get rid of. Now we are faced with an economic system which is intertwined. You are a member, as a country, as a government, you are a member of multilateral organizations like the United Nations, like whoever, like whatever. Okay? Not too long ago, Zimbabwe was a member of the Commonwealth. And we know the Commonwealth is just a conglomerate of the yes boys to the Queen. We know that. The purpose of the Commonwealth is not to save Commonwealth members, but to save Her Majesty and His Majesty. We know that. But you see, now those systems, you need to prepare for them properly to be able to extricate yourself from such systems. So I think, yes, Mozambique is not what it's supposed to be. Angola is not what it's supposed to be with all the resources and everything. But you see, you are tied down. You need to understand how the international political economy works. You need to understand how international trade works. Yes, we can decide today as Swapo, and I will tell you that a number of us are resolved that in the new administration will take drastic steps, but those drastic steps should respect the law and should also measure the consequences that will harm the country. And to recover, you see, if you don't plan properly for economic struggle, you'll find it very difficult to recover. When sanctions hit you, when those systems hit you, what you call the international system is not a country, it's a system. That's why you can change presidents in the USA, change prime ministers in the UK. The system remains the same. The system remains the same. So we need to come up with a system ourselves. How do we do that? The first step is capacity building. Change the mindset first to understand that this economic struggle is going to require this sacrifice, that sacrifice, and that sacrifice. Once you have changed that mindset and people buy into that, you take them along. But you see, we have policies, very good policies, which are managed by intellectuals who do not agree with our policies, but they agree with the fast system of making a dollar. So we need to be very careful. But as for the Swapo Party, the economic struggle is something we have planned for since the 60s, is something we are gradually moving towards, but we will need a buy-in from even our own members as Swapo members. You need a buy-in. When Burkina Faso changes what they change, they have a buy-in from the people. You don't want to create a revolution because land is the basis of a revolution. There's no revolution that can claim to have succeeded without land. But getting that land, I'll talk about that because it's a process. There's a process. In this country, we have had so many land reforms conferences. And I'm telling you, when we'll get to that topic, what we have achieved so far, many African countries and many former colonies have not achieved in 38 years.
I can really understand. You can omit, my king, please. It's possible to understand how difficult this process is. And that's why I thank you, Dr. Charles Mubita. I thank you, King Maponga, for this pro and cons. I want to inform our audience, huge audience that we've had here today. Ever since we came up on Pan African Daily, we've never had it. It's because this topic, it's actually like King Maponga said, now it's no more about romancing or just speaking, we want to make Africa great and this. Now it's breaking into the yoke of how do we get it and how do we get it now. So I want to thank you very much for that analysis to understand that it can never go easy to decolonize without the mindset, and that's what we do here on the Pan African Daily TV every day, trying and educating our people. Now is the time for political and economic education. And that's why we're going actually with Swapo. Now, I want to get back now to like, okay, we know the history a little bit. We understand the process a little bit. We want to touch really the agenda, which Namibia is setting, because our topic today is Swapo Party in Namibia set the agenda. We know that we'll always be coming back, on a series of these conversations to break the yoke. But this is the first time, and I really want to thank King Maponga who brought this initiative this morning to say, now is time for political education. Because each time we're talking about decolonizing our minds, we don't talk about the root cause. A lot of us Africans don't even know about Swapo, that it was a liberation movement, because some mushroom parties are just coming down from intellectuals and everything, and nobody knows any history, no backbone, nothing. So it's really a Pan-African step into education to know the basics and the root. I want to get back to King Maponga. King Maponga, I turn on the radio, I turn on the TV, this morning, I mean, when I say TV or a Pan African Daily TV, news everywhere on Maponga in Namibia. Everything was shutting down. The skies were breaking. I like, what is happening? I reached out to the king. He was not reachable. News headlines everywhere on social media. I didn't understand. We had a conversation last week, and what has Maponga done again? What actually happened? What were you doing in Namibia, on whose invitation, and what kind of a chaos that you caused that is bringing this? I mean, I love the way Dr. Charles just composedly. Maybe I should ask Dr. Charles that question first before getting to you. How did Maponga get himself into speaking on the Swapo and like spark up the revolution again that I thought you once fought in 1966? Dr. Mubita, let me first start with you and then we'll branch it over.
Well, thank you, but that's unfair. I would say whoever invited Brother Maponga did the right thing. I would have invited myself. I would have invited him myself. If I were the organizer, I would have invited him. You see, he was invited to be part and parcel of the panel. We had 5 different sessions to discuss 5 different sectors of the economy that is addressed in the Swapo Party manifesto. And the sector he was addressing was the question on land, right? Which was blown out of context. Obviously, you know how sometimes as human beings, and I am not talking about Africans here, I'm talking about human beings. And sometimes we tended to understand the things that we didn't listen. And we hear things that were not said. So the context in which he addressed the issue, I think, was not properly understood. Because what was understood was that he came to lecture, to bash, to tell Swapo off about the fact that Swapo got in independence for Namibia, walked into a system and sat on the same chairs that the colonialists were sitting, and continued with the same laws and everything else. I think the context was missed because he was addressing a Southern African phenomenon. He was addressing an issue about liberation movements as a whole. He only gave an example of the red line as a case in point in Namibia. Otherwise, the rest was more generic. So I think I would rather let him, maybe retell the story so that the same people that are listening maybe can clean their paper and be able to understand properly. Maybe I misunderstood you, but that's how I looked at it. But the red line issue, I would love to address that when we come to that.
The red line issue is a very important thing. We'll come back to that. And but before we get back to that, I think what I was saying is all the papers actually were so positive on to get that kind of fire again into Swapo, which is something that has been there. Like there literally was nothing new that King Maponga said, but it's just coming from a neighbor. It's something that never has been done, that a party in a country invites the neighbor. And I think that was the icing of the cake. That was the biggest success that we could see in that manifesto, that Swapo literally invited others. Yes.
It is an election period. And everything that is said now will be interpreted for somebody's political gain. It's a lot of manipulation because people are vying. We just have a few weeks to go. 28 days to go before election. So whatever you say will be twisted.
Yes, correct. Very, very correct, my doctor. I want to come back to King Maponga, like you said, reframe it. I mean, on sitting on that podium and actually breaking that ice, and the manifesto itself had a lot of this permanent point. Now, did you have the impression like, we are still going to fight another battle with our colonial mind? Or you actually, like, of course, with your topic, you didn't go out of topic, but the way you bashed that topic out, even watching some of those videos, what came upon you when you took that microphone?
Oh, thank you. Firstly, I would like to maybe just take one issue on what Dr. Mubita brings forward, that we have slacked a bit, and I say so with a very gentle hand on your shoulder, my elder. We have slacked a bit, and I think we've given too much latitude to international politics. Because our case in point is Tanzania, where 3 to 4 political parties were able to train together, eat together, cry together, fight together, and support each other. But immediately we left a place of unity. We went into a place of international hibernation, whereby now United Nations has more voice than your brother that you were with in the trench. Commonwealth countries now have more power over you because they are giving you independence rather than your brothers. And because we've played, I'm just mentioning this as an observation, and because we've played ourselves into this international politics, we've actually undermined the regional politics. There's no reason why Zimbabwe should struggle with sanctions when Namibian fellow comrades, ANC fellow comrades, PAC fellow comrades, APLA, Frelimo fellow comrades, we're together in the trenches. And Zimbabwe for 25, 30 years can be tortured by people that are 5, 6, 7,000 kilometers from here. And a brother of mine who is in Namibia, a brother of mine who is in South Africa and Botswana, will constantly require visas and block off doors and continuously, as it were, victimize each other. So I would like maybe just to tap a little bit on that. That may be another way Swapo may need to start strategically talking. And I'm glad Dr. Mubita is here. Because when you call your fellow comrades in the 5, 6 neighboring countries, you are not talking to strangers. You are talking to people that you know, people that you shared blankets with, people that you drank water with. And I don't know why we wait for such a long time for the colonial system to constantly dictate to us post our independence. I just thought I'd mention that in passing. And again, we must put it on record that the colonial system is not as diplomatic as we are. They are violent. They're very violent. And in the midst of their violence, they get things done. In the midst of our politeness and our gentleness, we may actually begin to fuel ourselves. I say so on a case in point on ANC in South Africa. That democratic movement, rule of law, and etc. and etc. And we've actually been able to see ANC beginning to fragment into 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces, right within the past 10 years, 15 years. As of the past election, they're now sitting on 40%. And if things continuously go on this trajectory, I can even predict that on the next election, ANC might drop from 90% votes to less than 20%. Now, when we see these things as observers, and we say, is this the way to go, or can we possibly work on this situation ahead of time? And I'm saying so to a very strong Swapo Politburo member, that when you hear that your neighbor's house is on fire and the wind is coming from that direction, you will be naive to think that your house is safe when you are actually on the winding side or on the western side of the same fire. That's my first comment. I would like to comment on my visit to Namibia. Very beautiful, very refreshing. In fact, thank you, Doctor. I was greatly honored. And I want to first of all dispel one or two things. I was not paid millions of dollars. The doctor is here to confirm that on my own face. Someone was saying I received millions of dollars. Someone was saying I received 60,000. Someone was saying I got 100,000. I can put it on record and I'll protect Swapo for the purpose of what it was. They gave me my daily fee. When I do my normal talking around the country and around the world, they pay me my 25, 30,000 rand to get that thing done. They organized my flights and organized my accommodation. So it was not 60,000, it was not $1 million. And the problem is that liars also don't do their research. I wish they were lying and they were lying in one word and they were lying together. Now they have 5 to 6, 7 lies of the same problem. Now the fact coming out. So if you want to know how much I was paid by Swapo, I was paid 30,000 by Swapo, and I got my accommodation and my flights were paid for as such, which is my normal daily rate when I'm doing my normal speaking as well. But not that it is 30,000, depending on the quality of work that I'm doing. Sometimes I charge 50, sometimes I charge 100, sometimes I charge 300,000, depending on what I'm doing. So that's not an issue that you say Maponga is worth 30,000. I will assess and see if it is worth my time. What made me give them that deal? I believe in Swapo. I believe in their liberation struggle. I worked in Zimbabwe for the past 2 years to 3 years. I got the same backlash. People saw me standing with Dr. Emerson Mnangagwa, and everyone, Maponga is a sellout. You have betrayed the liberation struggle. You have what and what. I said, hey, I'm coming back home, and I need to work with the people that are in power. I'm getting old now. I don't have energy to be working with young people who wanna be, and who are still dreaming of what they are going to be doing. I would rather talk to a man who is driving the bus and possibly share with him some ideas as to which direction I want this bus to go. So I brought my manifesto with me. I actually organized my own political party, to be more frank. And then I took the notes of what I wanted to achieve. And I submitted those minutes and those notes to the ruling party. And I said, this is what I was saying. And one of the key issues was the issue of benchmarking our currency on our gold. I'm glad that was implemented. Secondly was the decentralization of government and empowering rural communities and growth points, and allow the economy to move away from capital city mindset and allow rural communities to begin developing. That was taken on board. I fought very vigorously on the issues of water distribution and finishing up the projects to water Bulawayo and make sure that we have enough water in Bulawayo, which has been stricken by drought and water shortages from 1912. And I went to Gwai River and I was able to see the dam is almost 50 to 60% in completion, which was commissioned in 1912. And for all these years, no one has finished that project. And the roads infrastructure, I made noise about that. It was implemented. I shouted about the airports, and they are now up to scratch. And I also spoke about the Monumtapa Trust, where all the resources of the country should be put in one basket. And all these things can be found in the documents that I wrote. I cannot say everything has been accepted, but a great number of that has been put into place. Now, if I look at myself as a Zimbabwean, will I say all I want is power, or all I want is to see transformation amongst my people? I'd rather go for the second one. If I could see how the ruling political party could begin to help and assist in achieving those objectives, I, as a Zimbabwean, should be very happy that the objectives of which I wanted to see achieved, they've now been achieved. And when I got a call for Swapo, I actually said to myself, when the media people called me, I said, oh, what an opportunity to share my ZANU-PF experience. And I would like to congratulate Swapo. This is mature politics. This is mature regional politics, that you can actually call someone from outside to come in and have this quality of conversation. The reason for my coming was to share the Zimbabwean experience, the regional experience, but above everything else, I wish, and I still want to challenge you, Dr. Mubita, the Pan-African agenda must still become top priority on the Swapo politics. I know you have lots of things that you want to do at a domestic level. You don't want to become like Zimbabwe. You don't want to become like South Africa. You don't want to become like Burkina Faso. You have your own dynamics in your own country. But when all is said and done, sooner or later, we will need to discuss the issue of the unity of Africa. When I last 2 years, when I came down and I had an opportunity of meeting with Dr. Hagi, Genkop, we had a lengthy discussion, very fruitful discussion, even to the lifting of the borders between Namibia and Zimbabwe. We spoke about that. And within a space of 2 months or so, I'm glad you picked up the phone call to Masisi. And right now we can begin to enjoy the free movement between Botswana and Namibia. But that's not enough, Doctor. We need free movement between Namibia and Botswana, between Namibia and South Africa, between Namibia and Angola, between Namibia and Zimbabwe, between Namibia and Zambia. Then we can say, comrades, this is what we fought for in Mozambique. So, and I think all of the political parties, and I wish, Doctor, take this on minutes, that Swapo, ANC, ZANU-PF, Frelimo, Zambia Party, and etc., you need to come up with your own political conference across the borders, so that you can inform your various governments as to where do you want to take Africa, particularly as the southern region. And for me, that was very critical to begin to ignite again the Tanzania camaraderie of working together. And Zimbabwe gives you a blueprint. We made mistakes here. How can you alleviate them so that we can begin to move forward in the region? And right now, with the war brewing in Mozambique, Namibia will become a very critical strategic partner to Zimbabwe. Swakopmund, in terms of the imports of our implements and goods and services from other countries coming through the borders of Namibia, Katima Mlilo, Kasane, Victoria Falls into Zimbabwe. So that strategic relationship is very good, very good. Exchange of education and knowledge is critical. And if we can begin again to resuscitate that Pan-African move, that will bless my heart. But by no means, I want to put it on record, I did not go to Namibia to bash anybody. I did not go to Namibia to isolate Swapo as a sleeping party, as I even mentioned it in my, it's on record, that this has been a downfall of many, if not all, African governments. That when we get into the system, we sometimes forget, delay, in some cases, even neglect how best we can service our people. It was a fruitful discussion, called again to Swapo, called again, I'll put it on record, called again to come and support and put my help in Swapo winning elections in 2024. I will do everything in my power to assist and support a system that is in power to implement their manifesto. Because once they implement that manifesto, lives will change. Lives will change. And a better future for Namibia is on the doors. The problem is when we write beautiful documents, and then after elections, we take these documents and put them on file 13 somewhere behind the doors, and we continue life as usual. And that is the frustration of the young people. So again, my going there was to say, you are no longer on your own. We also, as Zimbabweans and other people in the region, we have an interest in the success of Namibia. Because if Namibia is not stable, we are not stable. If one of us is not well, all of us are not well. And as a trade unionist, you know what I'm talking about. An injury to one is an injury to all. And I wish that spirit of camaraderie can be resuscitated in all the other regional political parties. That is why I accepted. That's what I came to do. And I hope I did a good job, and I'm equally available to assist you going forward. I thank you.
Doctor, allow me just to say four things. Four things, if you don't mind. Number one, the Al-Keblan. I think my king knows what I'm talking about. The Pan-Al-Keblan spirit is very much alive in Namibia. That's one. Number two, I think maybe you might wish to know that the 6 sister parties, liberation movements, they constantly meet. And I'm talking about Chama cha Mapinduzi in Tanzania, Frelimo in Mozambique, MPLA in Angola, ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe, ANC in South Africa, and Swapo. We constantly meet. Our secretary generals meet. Even this year, I think they met twice. The last meeting was in Victoria Falls. That is to keep that unity. Over and above that, the 6 sister parties, and I think my brother needs to, I'll give you a call tomorrow so that maybe we can discuss some of the things. The 6 sister parties, plus with the help of China, have established a liberation movement ideological school called the Mwalimu Julius Nyerere Leadership School, which is in Tanzania, which trains leaders from all the 6 sister parties, all right, with lecturers, selected by the 6 sister parties to train ideology with the purpose of, getting leaders of tomorrow from the 6 sister parties. So that's number 3. Number 4, Namibia has also taken a bold step, not now, some years back, over 10 years ago, that our port of Walvis Bay, there are dry ports of landlocked countries, Zimbabwe being one, Botswana being one. They have dry ports in Walvis Bay. The port belongs to them. We gave them these ports because they are our brothers, they are our sisters. So I just thought I should mention this to say, look, and also on the manifesto, the manifestos of these ice cream political parties that melt after 10 years, it was here, the next time is gone. Those manifestos, yes, they are forgotten after 5 years or immediately after the election, they are forgotten. Unfortunately, or rather fortunately for us, but unfortunately for those premature political parties, our manifesto has been a living document since 1960. Since 1960. When the Swapo party was formed on 19 April 1960, it detailed what it wanted to see in Namibia. That was crystallized and re-emphasized at the Consultative Conference of December 1969 to January 1970. And then in 1976, the Swapo party sat down and translated that public declaration, because a manifesto is just a public declaration of your policies, of your aims, of your intentions, and your commitments. Now, we put on paper those declarations in a document called the Swapo Party Political Program, written in 1976 at a place called Nampundo in Zambia. That political program is still here today. Have not changed. And that is the political program from where the manifesto of 1989, which led us to independence, was driven from. And the manifesto of today also comes from there, because the principles set down by the Swapo Party for political empowerment, for economic empowerment, for youth empowerment, for gender empowerment, and land reform, all those things are contained in that political program. So the manifesto only borrows. So even if this particular manifesto of ours, which is 2025 to 2030, even if it gets done with in 2030, obviously the next manifesto has to be benchmarked from the political program of the Swapo Party. So we don't deviate. Unlike other political parties that might come up with something totally new, we have a guide. And that guide, the political program, is what guides the Swapo Party. And, I just thought I should mention those 4 things.
Thank you so much. It was very relevant. And of course, you just saw me dancing in the background and stuff like that. And yes, we love that initiative, and to understand that these sisters liberation movements, they are still intact, they are still on mission, they are still on point. But I really love the new name that you call, and I begin to think Pan-Arican. I mean, that's so unique to it. I'll come back. We are going to come back right away after this very short break. Let's just breathe in, breathe out, and we get back to the next conversation on this show. We still have a long time to go. We have another hour again to crack down with these 2 ladies, these 2 gentlemen right here. I mean, flag bearers of the Africa we want, saying it is for Africa by Africans and Africans. So let's take a break. We'll be right back. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Where are my guests? I didn't say we're taking a break like you guys just, yes. So we are back. Pan-African Daily TV fans. I just wanted to say something very unique in before we get into the next conversation. Now, this is what is going to happen on Pan-African Daily, not tomorrow because we have a very tight program, but on Friday, as you heard the leaders talking, we are going to get this guy on the show, and he's also coming with another speaker, and they are also going to be accompanied by King Maponga Joshua. Now, you've heard the Dr. Mubita talked about Frelimo. Frelimo is also the liberation movement, which became a party in Mozambique. You heard him say it a couple of times. Now, they recently just had their elections, and we know Mozambique is boiling, but we know nothing about Mozambique. We call the names, we talk about it. We don't know the past, the present, and the future. So just like Dr. Mubita and King Maponga are educating us about, a Swapo, the party in Namibia, and which is the Liberation Party. Exactly on Friday, we are going to get Excellency Venancio Mondlane, who is the independent presidential candidate that stood for the elections in Mozambique. So we were talking about Frelimo. So Friday is going to be another next brother or sister, as Dr. Mubita was talking. And this presidential candidate is coming to talk to us about yesterday, today, and the future of Mozambique and Frelimo. So we are beginning to get into the roots and the education of this political movement. So I wanted to say, let me just announce it to you. They're going to come at 3-packet, and hopefully King Maponga would be there to ask good questions as usual, okay? And to sit everybody on top. Us, and them and all of us fighting for the liberation of Africa. So yes, back to studio. I want to thank all of you, and we're getting back into the next question session. Now it's actually going to be about the weekend's program, the manifesto. We've heard a little bit about the history. We're going to continue this series here on Pan-African Daily. It's all about, like Maponga said, hey, if you're not calling me on Pan-African Daily or my channel to talk about practical things that are tangible, we're done with samba samba and playing taboos. So I want Dr. Mubita, yes?
Yes.
King Maponga, you want to say something? Unmute yourself, please.
My hand is up. I would like to fast track this conversation into a very beautiful space, so that we are mature people. We are mature people. I would like the honorable doctor. I met him when I came down over the weekend, and I don't want to speak on his behalf. I want people to compare what I said and what Swapo believes in, so that we can clarify that whole misunderstanding there.
Yes.
A few questions for you. What will Swapo do differently this time? Where are you taking the nation to? And possibly, what drastic changes can the voting people expect? Because when I was listening to the SG talking, and I listened to the vice president talking, that it won't be business as usual, that those words came out from them. What did she mean when she said that? When she said, when we leave here, let's not go back home and we sit on our hands. What did she mean when she said that? When we are beginning to look at a new dispensation that is coming with new leadership. And again, I would like to congratulate you for putting forward Madame Nandi as a presidential candidate, which we are way ahead of America as Namibia, way ahead of America. And Germany followed, was there also with the chancellor. But many democratic countries cannot even come close to what Namibia is about to do, which is a groundbreaking. And in the South here, you are the champions actually in terms of having a female president. And I would like you to be very liberal and don't bite your tongue and promise the people your manifesto in the few words and be clear, because I will not want to be crucified alone as if I said things that you don't believe in also as Swapo. So promise the people what you promise them, and please, in a concise way, tell us what will be different this time around as we are voting in a month from now.
I am very ready, my brother, to be crucified, especially by a brother.
With gentle hands. I'm not intending to kill you.
Yes. No, President, our presidential candidate, and the Secretary General said that it will not be business as usual. Okay, this will be business unusual. It's simply because if you had listened to the presidential candidate, she repeatedly said the manifesto cannot implement itself. It needs implementers. We have very good ideas. We've had marvelous manifestos from 1990 up to now, marvelous manifestos, but you lacked implementers. And I'm quite sure with her experience and knowledge of party cadres, she will deliberately select a team of implementers, not a team of people. What kills us is not necessarily our policies. We have very good policies all over Africa, very beautiful policies, nice constitutions. But once you get into the office, the constitution, the policy, the program, the manifesto remains outside the door. You'll only pick it up when it's time for elections. You even forget it. Now, there need to be a deliberate move. And this is where Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Angola, Namibia, South Africa included, had serious problems. We learned from Zambia, but we didn't expect what we found. What we found is that you get elected into government. You are minister of so, you are the president, the vice president, the prime minister, whoever, the minister, the permanent secretary or ED now. These are political people. Technocrats start from the directors going downwards. And these directors have always been recycled. In our constitution, the constitution that we adopted in 1990, February, it enshrines somewhere that you see the technocrats that you found in government, they need to be retained. You cannot fire them. They need to be retained. So now Swapo had a manifesto, ANC had a manifesto, ZANU-PF had a manifesto and whatnot. But now who actually implements this policy? It's not the permanent secretary, it's a political appointee. Most of the time you find the permanent secretary studied energy, but you put this person to deal with sports, okay? It's a permanent secretary in sports. The person will not understand what's happening there. So we found people that were entrenched in positions to perpetuate a system. So now we have reached a stage where, look, 2017, the Swapo party deliberately took a decision to implement an institution which was conceived long ago during the 1960s when we were still fighting, to say, let's put together this institution. It is called the Swapo Party School. It is functioning. Yes, we have trained almost about 200 people so far. And we are saying if we have to get somewhere, we need to train our people into the policies of the Swapo Party so that they can become implementers of these policies. Because if you have fly-by-night members of a party, because some people join a party for various reasons. I think former President Thabo Mbeki eloquently said it, that, the ANC of today is the ANC of members that only come to make business out of the ANC. So if you can go beyond that, and this is what we've tried to do, we've tried to train a cadreship in the party. Not too many so far, but you do not have to rely only on people that believe in theories and rhetoric and all that. You need implementers. So what is going to happen differently this time is that put the right person in the right position to do the right things, but a knowledgeable person, because what kills us as Africans, we don't build capacity, but yet we want to take over from a white system without capacity. We need to sit and build capacity, build capabilities, because that's the only way, because that capacity that you have built will be able to bring in a new mindset, will be able to understand the origin of the particular system that you need to change, the consequences of changing such a system. So what the Vice President was saying, what the SG was saying, was simply that this time we need implementers. People need to implement the manifesto. The manifesto of the Swapo Party, unfortunately, over the years, has not been implemented. I'm sad to say so, but it has not been implemented. You see, you have a structure of government where, unlike in other countries, you have other countries where you drastically say anybody in a public service cadreship should belong to the party. That's how China is developing. That's how China is able to implement their policies and all that. But here you have a system where directors and whatnot, 90% or 70% of them do not buy into the ideology of a ruling party, but you expect them to diligently implement your manifesto. So I think that's a wake-up call that we have as Namibia. Yes, we will not willy-nilly say 100% of civil servants should be Swapo members. That's not possible. You need to accommodate every other Namibian, but there's need to change that mindset. So that is what is going to be done differently this time around. I'm one of those people that have said, as my colleague said the other day at the panel discussion, things have to change.
I have one last one before I give over to Mama Susan. We have technocrats that are in the system and who have been long in the system, some of them. And as you rightfully say, that they've been recycled. Some of them have been recycled almost to a point of being inefficient. You're just moved because you cannot be fired. Now, my first question would be, what are you going to do in terms of changing that policy so that you can begin to implement a faster way? In as much as it is in the policy, it's not written in stone. People can go to Parliament and revoke, amend, correct that. Because if we are now using the Constitution to impede our own progress, then the Constitution has become an enemy of the people. Because we cannot die as a country and die as a continent because the Constitution says. So we may want to find out from you again, what are you going to do with your policies as a party, which are constitutional according to the party, but now you wake up to a realization that these policies that are in place are not working. Number two, since you are aware that in some times these policies have not been implemented, my question will be, what are you going to do as Swapo to fast track development and remove these blockages that are actually impeding on the quick success and development of the country? The government is in your hands, the policy is in your hands, the parliament is in your hands, the judiciary is in your hands. But when we discover that there's a problem, what are we going to do as Swapo to remove these blockages that impede the very constitution and manifestos that we write? Because this is the gap that we're talking about, where the policies are here, the constitution is here, the projects are now stuck between. The policy does not allow us to do it, but the manifesto is saying we are going to do it. So there's a vacuum there where action must take place, because then the right people are not there, the right political will is not there in respect of a policy or a constitution which is not practical. And I think this is where the frustration is, that Swapo knows what it must do, but it has put a suicide rope around their necks of a constitution which they cannot change like the Medo-Persians. But yet this is not working. What are we going to do about it?
That is why we are before the nation right now, asking the nation to give us an overwhelming mandate. You see, you need to have control of the legislature. Because if you have to change the blockages that are enshrined in a constitution, you need to do so legally. You need to do so by following the systems that are in place, right? So Parliament, it's only Parliament that can be able to change some of these blockages. And we are saying, give us 2/3. Namibia, give us 2/3 majority in Parliament so that we'll be able to change these things. At the beginning, from 1990 to somewhere around 2016, 2018, it was a little bit difficult, because even if you would have, had a 2/3 majority, you would still be hamstrung by the number of technocrats that you have in the system. Now we have reached a stage where the recycling has basically become an expired lubricant. Okay, it's an expired lubricant. It's now too thick. Basically, it's easy to dispose of. So because we've reached that stage, you need that kind of majority in Parliament that can fast track. You sit with most of the opposition that we have here, unfortunately. You sit in Parliament, you have serious issues, because right now, one of the main issues that we need to deal with in the new Parliament is to change all the colonial laws that we have. Because any system is based on a law. If you want to do anything, you have to respect the law, and you have to do things lawfully. So you need, first of all, to change that. But you can only change that if you have the majority in Parliament, right?
I love that, Doctor. I love that. And I want you to make a public statement that if Namibians will give Swapo 2/3 majority, I want you to promise Namibia that the red line will go, the technocrats and the dead wood will go. And maybe give me 2 or 3 other critical issues, the land reform, maybe put yourself on the spot and promise the voting people that give us 2/3 majority, we will deliver 1, 2, 3. Don't make them 10. Just maybe give me 2 or 3 critical issues that you'll be able to deliver. I think that's the last one. Then I'll hand over to Dr. Susan.
No, that's no problem. I can put my neck on the block right now and say, give us the 2/3, we will deliver. Number one, let's talk about the red line, because that has become one of the political banana around. You know, every monkey wants to jump to and eat this banana. You know what I mean? It's everybody's face. But they fail to understand that the Swapo party-led government, after the second land reform, we've put together a plan on how to remove the red line by at least 2027, 2028, completely gone. But you need to understand the red line is not 200 meters long. It's not 200 meters long. You're talking thousands of meters long. And then it requires a budget. So we have already now started with the budget. What have we to budget for? This red line has to be removed by people. Those people need accommodation along the red line. You need to have accommodation for those people because they're going to stay there with their families, with whatever, to be able to do those things. Then you have to have build disease-free zones, which will then take care of whatever is coming from the northern side of the red line, coming to the south. Everything will be going through. But in case you and I know we have so much foot and mouth disease, we have so many other things, and all these things were brought, and I contend that these things are not African. Our African cattle never had those things of foot and mouth. It's because we brought in some people who think that injecting a cow makes it better and whatnot. Those injections are the ones that brought all these things. All right. So now we have this divide, but we are catering for this. These things, budgets have already been prepared, and we are going to get the red line off. Secondly, we are turning sport, for example, sport into a business commodity. You're turning sport into a business commodity. Right now, we are among the very few countries in Africa where if you have to play your soccer game, whether it's COSAFA, whether it's CAF, whatever, you have to play it outside. Now, to nurture a sports person takes time. Your education system, our education system, the education system in Africa is based on either the queen or the king or whoever system. It only teaches you to know what Vasco da Gama did and what David Livingstone did and some sciences that are not practical. Now, we are going to change that to include skills development from primary. The Swapo party is going to do it. And I put my neck on the block and promise you to say, I already promised you are coming to the inauguration of the first female president of the Republic of Namibia. You're coming to that inauguration.
Susan,
when you come,
Dr. Susan, we're invited for the inauguration.
Yeah, I'll even invite you from my own pocket. Now, but when you come, I'll give you a year that within that year, you'll see the development plans of the Swapo party being implemented. Now, the other thing that I'll say is different now, and it's going to be done differently. We take no prisoners now. We take no prisoners. We drink blood. You see, the manifesto that we have today has timelines. For the first time, we didn't have a manifesto that has timelines. Yes, that manifesto has timelines. And we are saying we are going to periodically review it every 1 year to say how far have we gone with this particular project or this particular program. And then we can perfect where we believe we haven't achieved. So that is a living document. And I am saying, give us that two-third majority, give us the next 5 years, Namibia will not be the same.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's okay. That's okay, my king. But I will come back now to you. My questions will actually be directed to King Maponga Joshua as a consultant, as also as an observer, and also being motivated by the new strategy of Pan-Africanism involving neighboring countries. You brought a lot of talks. Of course, most of them are already been spoken, but I would like you. Oh, okay, wonderful. I would like you, King Maponga, to actually give a way forward. Like, what would you, if you were to run as a president, what would you advise? What did you see? And actually, as also an advisor working on that manifesto, and you were there at the Congress, and you see the number of months that we have ahead, what would you advise Swapo and the leadership to do? Number two, being a female president, which is the first in East, I mean, not the first in East African country, but again, another female president coming up. We see America still struggling if they're going to vote a female president in office since the existence of the state, which is apparently the father of democracy. But Africa has been doing that, and we're also getting again into getting another female leader. So, King Maponga, can you just give us key points that you said? This is what I think. This is what I see. This is what I expect for you to win. You have to do this and this and this and this, because you're like, you know the political situation, you know the countries, you know the history, you know everything. What is the way forward? What would you advise Dr. Mubita, Swapo Party, just only on that first? We'll talk about the other general and but what are the points of advice? Give us at least 10.
My first day in office, day number 1, I will make sure that every house in Namibia has a garden. First day of office.
That's what?
First day of office, that every house in Namibia has a garden.
Yes.
Where they can plant their vegetables, their tomatoes, and their onions. And those that have homesteads can keep some sheep, some goats, and etc. Because I understand that an empty stomach does not know politics. When people are hungry, you cannot do politics with them. So food security for me is number 1. Number 2, I will make sure that all the organic and indigenous foods, small seeds, that our forefathers used to plant and eat, which are drought resistant, can come back and become fashionable in the new Namibia. Because some of these grains that are GMOs and etc., they will later on eat into the health system. It does not work. I will increase the tariffs and taxes on all junk foods and fuzzy drinks, Coca-Cola, Sparlet, all these poisons. I will increase them beyond the roof. And I will make the original juices much cheaper. Why am I being so radical? Because I want a healthy nation. First, before I could do anything else, I want people to be healthy. So on the health system, I understand that agriculture and health and education are intertwined. They will need to have an education of food security. I will need to build what I call an agri-culture. And I want to break that word into 2. Agri-culture, which then means the culture of plowing, preparing, storing, and eating food. And to me, that's very critical. That's number one. Number one, I will actually make the Minister of Lands translate itself into the Minister of Agriculture and put health and put education in the same basket, because we don't want to work in silos, because these elements are intertwined. I will make agriculture compulsory. Compulsory. There's no child who must finish school and they don't know how to plant a tomato. It's illegal, because when you fail in school, you cannot fail to look after your stomach. It doesn't make sense that our system is so academic, and yet when you don't make it in the mathematics and science spaces, you don't even have the skills, basic skills of human survival. I will also move on very quickly to our indigenous medicines and our indigenous herbs, and protect some of our sacred forests. And I think COVID gave us a wake-up call that some of the solutions that gave us survival were not the importation of vaccines and other medicines, but our own grandmothers came up with concoctions that many of us, I even saw my pastor the other day, my pastor friend, drinking some concoctions, but all along he was preaching that concoctions are from the devil. But when diseases finally arrived, he forgot the name of Jesus and he went to drink these concoctions. So I think our universities need to activate our indigenous knowledge systems when it comes to medicines. So we need those departments fully effective and working within the university space. Then we don't marginalize our indigenous knowledge, because the technologies that they have there, some of them even the West has not yet discovered them. I will also make sure that I take a third of my military in Namibia and I send them to Burkina Faso, so that we can begin to silence the war that is in Congo. There is a mystery that Africa is missing. Congo has enough water to water the whole of Africa. Congo has enough land to give food to the whole of Africa. And if the whole of Africa goes into a drought, only one place on the face of the planet, particularly Africa, would remain with food, and that is Congo. And when we undermine Congo as our ultimate food basket, I think we're missing a very fundamental space. And the white people know this. That's why ever since colonization, there is no day that goes down and bullets and guns are not blazing in Congo. So I will make it one of my key regional strategies to make sure that we have silenced the war that is in Congo. On the second week, I'll start calling my fellow presidents in the 5 countries that are surrounding me and begin a robust regional strategy. And within that regional strategy, as a president, I'll make sure that the city between Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia is built there in Katima Mlilo, because that is a strategic key place which connects 5 countries together. And it will improve our tourism, it will unlock our economies. And once that city is built, it will already lead us to the one currency space, where within this new city that is along the Great Zambezi, how are we going to do business and trade? It won't make sense for us to have 5 currencies walking between Angola, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia. It will automatically force us as leaders to move towards a unified regional currency. I'm saying so because BRICS right now has proved that it can be done. A country that is in China, a country on the other end of the world in Brazil, a country on the other side of the South Africa, a country that is somewhere in the far east, India, and a country that is on the far north, that is Russia, can agree on the snow in Moscow to have one currency. And someone in the Zambezi River, whose grandmother is across Namibia, the grandfather is across the river, we still don't understand the power of unity. That will be very critical for me to say, how do I, as a president of the country, work around with my 5 neighbors that are close to me to build this common business place? And the 5 of us, number 6, will have to source a budget and put our own satellite in the sky, which can service all of us in the region. That will improve our military, that will improve our broadcasting, that will improve our entertainment, that will also improve our sports and recreation. So we need a regional satellite that will service the region to manage our militarization, our entertainment, and other space observations. Above everything else, I will guarantee that all indigenous people in my region are protected and they are kept, and their knowledge constantly becomes part of the curriculum, the sciences, the knowledge, the birth control technologies, the birth delivery issues, the cosmetics that they are using, how they prepare their food, their technology and architecture. And I will literally put a team of people to walk the Okavango, walk the Himba places, walk and look for the Bushmen and learn these technologies. Because I promise you, when these indigenous tribes disappear, they disappear with a world of knowledge that we will never discover ever again. And in conclusion, when I am a president, I will make sure that all the indigenous leaders, the kings, the chiefs that are in the village, will form a higher body that is above the parliament. Because these are the original custodians of the land. These are the original custodians of the land. We may need to fine-tune it to come up with a similar strategy like Britain has done, so that the royal house on top can become the ultimate owners of the land, and the government becomes the executors and the managers and the implementers and etc. And all land must thoroughly and eternally belong to the royal house, so that we can be able to deal with rogue elements of foreigners that are coming into our places and claiming ownership. And with the royalties owning the land, we know that the people are ultimate owners of the land. And for me, that would be one of the first key principles, because we can work on the constitutions in two ways. We can work on trying to negotiate with them in terms of buying, willing, willing seller, and etc. But once we change one comma on the constitution, that now that the government is going to report to the kings, and the kings are the owners of the land, we may remove lots of bottlenecks when it comes to the legislative frameworks that are harassing us. With those few words, I would be able to go home and sleep and know that I will have done something that changes the political terrain for a very long time. And I will benchmark with Dubai, I'll benchmark with Britain, or benchmark with China, and come up with a hybrid, and Singapore, and come up with a hybrid governance system that is relevant to my people. A bit of meritocracy, a bit of benevolent dictatorship, a bit of royalty, a bit of democracy, a bit of this. We need to fine-tune that thing, because it looks like democracy has become demon crazy, because democracy is bringing with it sexless society, abuse, ethical and immoralities, that if we continue going on this path of democracy, and if we continue on this path of trying to become American, I think very few years from now will be coconuts, brown on the outside and white on the inside. I thank you.
Yeah, thank you, my brother. I agree with most of what you said, but just wanted to maybe amplify one thing. When you say the first thing, when you take over, the first thing is to ensure that every house has a garden. I would love that. But after that, you also brought in an issue of food security. See, my understanding is that self-sufficiency does not necessarily translate to food security. Food security is a constant supply and ensuring a never-ending supply of food. But it does not address, it's one concept that's far different from food sovereignty. Because what you're talking about, planting the tomato each house, that now is food sovereignty. So now food sovereignty and food security are two different things. And I into the concept of food sovereignty. Because when you produce what you eat, you produce what you want to produce. Whereas food security is as long as you get this supplies from whoever, injected whatever, spices and all these things, Otherwise, in everything else, I agree with what you're saying. So, for us to get to food sovereignty and using the culture of agri, okay? The culture of agri, okay? We need to ensure that we have enough land, we acquire enough land. It does not matter whether it's communal government, what, but there should be land. Land has to be made available to the people. Let the people, first of all, be developed to develop themselves. They should be developed to develop themselves. That's how Mwalimu Nyerere managed to do things right. First, you deal with the people, develop the people to be able to understand the use of the land. Yes, we understood that before the interruption by colonialism and all that. They understood how to use land. But that understanding of the past years might not tie in now, because that time we used communalism. What was produced in a village was for everybody. It was not only for one house. It was for everybody. So now we need to move towards that food sovereignty, where and this is what we as Swapo Party are trying to impart to our products, to understand that there is need for not only your territorial integrity, territorial sovereignty, but food sovereignty. And once you've done that food sovereignty, then there is no need for you to even increase taxes on Coca-Cola and all these other things, because you'll just weather away. You'll weather away. Right now, you go to ShopRite, whether the ShopRite is in Zimbabwe or is in Zambia or Namibia, wherever, you enter into ShopRite and you tell that ShopRite that, look, we don't want to see your products. We want to bring our own products. And they remove their products from the shelves. There will be no product there because you are not producing anything yourself. Then there will be no product. They might even decide to take the shelves. The shelves in the shop. Right? So you just have a building with your. So our idea is the Swapo Party. Let's produce for ourselves what we want to eat and what we want to trade with the outside world. And that's very important. And they nicely explained in the manifesto that we have when it comes to food, sovereignty. We still have, as you also agreed, think tanks, these technocrats, you have got intellectuals who still refer the concept of food security. But food security is not sustainable. It is colonialist in practice, and it will not take us anywhere. Whereas food sovereignty is the way to go. So I believe, and I agree with you when it comes to the production of food, for us to be independent and self-sufficient when it comes to food. Now, the question of the kings, the traditional authorities, it is perfect. Perfect. I have no problem with it. But there are times where we need to have a political party here, a political party. I'll just simply say one of the premature political establishment that believes that, you see, your regional, you call them provinces, your provincial governments should be run by indunas. You see, an induna in Namibia basically would be able to count a few cows, okay? A few cows in a village. But if you expect the induna to be the one running, to be the governor of the province, a traditional leader, I am not disrespecting them, but we're talking of billions of budgets here. A traditional home is run by a family. It's run by a family. Now imagine a traditional home running the whole province. So I agree that yes, we have to accord our traditional leaders that authority so that we can retain our spirit of Al-Keblan. That I agree. But how do we do it? How do we do it? We might not be able to rush it. As you say, you could do it in 2 weeks' time, and we might not be able to rush it. The concept is nice, but how do we get there? How we get there is another problem. Because in each province, like these premature political entities were suggesting, in each region here in Namibia, you've got several traditional authorities. Now, which traditional authority is going to be the governor or be the regional governor or the regional authority in a particular region? Which traditional home will that be? You see, these things need to be thought through. The concept is nice. The concept is nice. You see, unless we say to ourselves, we go back to the times when we were living nicely in the Kemet, as the original Homo sapiens. If we go back there, it's fine. You will realize that the policies that we've adopted, even at the Swapo Party, these policies, most of them, as we go on, are dictated to by the change in times, the change in technology, the change in a number of things. We never had climate change. You and I, enjoy the Victoria Falls every time. The Muswotunya, we enjoy the Muswotunya every time we go there. Right now, it's dry because of climate change. It's dry. So how we used to look at the Zambezi then and how we can utilize the Zambezi now has shifted. The concept is the same. It is a country that connects 8 countries. I mean, it's a river that connects 8 countries. But the way we were using it that time and the way it is now, because of the chemicals that we put in that river, it's no more the same. So for us to detoxicate the Zambezi, for us to detoxicate the traditional system, for us to detoxicate the colonial system, we need to get back to the drawing board and be servants of the times we live in. We cannot be oblivious to this, and then come up with appropriate measures on how we can address the same concepts that we want to achieve, but dictated to by the times we live in. So I fully agree with all the, the suggestions that you would do if we say King Maponga is no more the king, is Changambire, is now the is now the president of the People's Republic of Utopia. I agree. But some of these things live in our minds. They need to be reduced to practicalities. And the practicalities have to conform to the times that we live in. If it were up to Swapo Party, things would have changed a lot. You remember in Zimbabwe, I came to Zim for the elections, 1980, because these were my own people. We were in the same trenches. They could not leave me behind. I came there for elections. I went with the person who was the director of the Zimbabwe African National Union radio station in Zambia and then in Tanzania. What happened at Pockets Hill? They walked in at Pockets Hill and just simply said, you get out, you get out, you get out. We are now in charge. We are taking over the radio station. You understand? There was a preparation. ZANU-PF had prepared these people to be able to broadcast. All right? We had a smaller contingent when we came here. We had a smaller contingent at the Voice of Namibia to take over the NBC. I walked into a studio to take over television in this country. When I walked in that studio, Everyone who was in that, from all the reporters, were whites. And I said, it was a Wednesday, 1st of August. It was a Wednesday. And then I said, look, news programs, everything was done in Afrikaans. And these were things that you would pick from the airport. Okay? They would pick these cassettes from Pretoria, prepared already. News is already packaged. Programs are already packaged in South Africa. Picked up from the airport, just place that thing in the bitter can and start playing in Afrikaans. So when I came in, the first thing I said was, on that Wednesday, I said, on Monday, everything is going to be in English. And they told me, no, we can't speak English. We'll not be able to report in English. I said, that's fine, but there will be English on television on Monday, all right? And there was English on that Monday. How did it happen? It was all a question of saying, now I am jumping into this river, whether I want it or not, I have to swim and go across. I went to
what is exciting? What is exciting? I love the radical you. When it comes to the media space, I wish we can have the same spirit across the other field. But while you are saying that on the traditional leaders, just to put context, I was not saying that we get someone who cannot count cows to run the village. No, even the Queen does not know how to run a budget. But then you put technocrats at the bottom, which is the parliament, which then does the paperwork and etc. I just thought I would insert that. You can continue, my honorable.
Yeah. But we are talking of a typical traditional. You see, we when we want to become the actual Al-Kebulan, and we are talking about our own roots, let us talk about the origin and use the origin tradition. We need to use the origin tradition, the original tradition, not the reformed traditions and all these things. You know, the reformed traditions that we have, the traditional kingdoms and all these things that we have today are not the same as the ones that the original ones. I think even in a country like Nigeria, where we respect a lot of, you know, our kings and all that, these things are move with time. But anyway, that's beside the point. I agree with most of the things that I'm saying. I just thought I needed to add up on, especially on food sovereignty.
Thank you very much. I think I'm sorry. We have 3 more minutes, and I want each and every one of you to round up. Of course, we'll be continuing this conversation because it's not something for today. King Maponga, you talked about, you know, the presidential candidate being a mother, not just a woman, but being a mother, and you compared it to say Namibia is doing very great in that. But how is that going to influence the narrative? Because you, particularly, I'm referring to the king, is saying if we would get more mothers in the front line and the kings in the back line, it could make a change. So, King Maponga, do you think Swapo also had that in mind to say, when we look at what we have done for 34 years or how many years in the party, I think we need a female energy inside there. I mean, number 2, Africa identity, like we were talking, because I myself, I was shocked when he said, you know, you cannot get a traditional ruler too. But I think that has to do with identity and spirituality. So these 2 variations, having a female leader or a mother to take over Namibia, you think it's going to make a lot of difference? And your promotion to say, yes, we want more female leaders on the continent. Or would you have, or what did you think they make different?
I will not be able to argue on women leadership because I was born by a woman myself. And there is no way I can say that my father looked after me more than my mother looked after me. Any person on the face of the earth can attest that with me. The idea of having a female president Number one, I think it gives us a very, very intense and beautiful opportunity to improve, one, our food and welfare. Mothers are good. You give a mother $10, you come home, she has cooked food, she has given you 2 vegetables, there is water, and there is a salad, and there's a cool drink. Mothers just are geniuses in terms of budgeting. So now, and I think Namibia is going to experience one of the most beautiful times. And mothers are not as wasteful, if they are good mothers, are not as wasteful as men are. So I look forward to Mama Nandi picking up and bringing with her the female energy into parliament and call a whip on wasteful expenditures. And she will be able to drive a more budget, financially modeled Namibia. And key to her drivers are issues of women, and I think that's very beautiful. She's coming with the vice president, I think, who will be a woman also. So there'll be 2 top women in the Namibian government who will be driving the wheel. And issues of women issues, I think on that one, we are sorted. And after all, let's not cringe, because there are more women than there are men. And number 3, I'm looking at the issues of children, child abuse, and the disadvantaged. She's a mother, and I think all mothers, when they see bad things happen, they hold their stomachs, and that says something, that there is emotions here. And when men are busy buying guns and going for sports and shooting each other, mothers would rather be looking after their own children. And number last, just in terms of beauty, a man can build a house, but a woman will make it into a home. There is a definite change. A man thinks just putting windows and putting a door, the house is finished. But no. A mother then will come in and say, here I'll put a fridge, here I'll put my flowers, here I'll put a table, and then on the table I'll put a piece of cloth, I will do this. So I'm actually looking forward to a clean Namibia. And since Namibia is already one of the cleanest cities in Africa, I think that during her reign, Namibia will reclaim that title back from Rwanda again and restore themselves as one of the cleanest cities in the world. And when it comes to negotiations, women are very, very good at negotiations. And when they bring that feminine energy within the space of government. So, and I think it will be a very respectful government with lots of maternal, softer side of power, which I think gives it an advantage. And of course, she comes in with a huge volume of experience in terms of her diplomacy, international affairs. And the good news is that she has worked in more than 3 to 4, if not 5 ministries in the government. And lastly, what you need to progress forward as a country is not changing hyenas with foxes. You need knowledge, so that there is a handover of power, consistencies, and etc. I know the young people may say, we want it now, but you don't even know how to write a proposal. You don't even know how to write a budget. You don't even know how to accept an ambassador. And yet you want to become a president of a country. Where do you even start? So maybe from my own side, I think as we did in Zimbabwe on our transition between Mugabe and Mnangagwa, there was not even one person who died on the street. That smooth transition for me is very, very critical. It carries with it the institutional knowledge and allow to give foreign investors and local people a stabilized economy going forward. I look forward to coming to inaugurate her, and we are looking forward to Swapo getting the 2/3 majority. I will write those things you've promised us on my wall, and when you finish and achieve any one of them, you call me and I'll come and celebrate the successes of Swapo in terms of delivering on their manifestos, I think.
Thank you very much to you, Dr. Mubita. You've had all the promises, and Maponga has promised him and I and the Pan-African Daily are going to be there for that inauguration. I mean, do you share that same vision? The mother in the kitchen, the mother in the house to feed the world is actually the better position now, or the better leadership that we need in Swapo. Particularly when you made a statement before that we are now going for leaders that are implementers. So getting a female president, you are very sure that this is the time to implement
No.
the manifesto.
Thank you. You see, I wish to add something. She's not only a mother. The Swapo Party presidential
Can you
candidate,
mute?
the Swapo Party presidential candidate is an accomplished leader who comes with wide experience. At a very young age, when she went into exile, she joined the ranks of the military of the Swapo Party. She gained that experience. And then she's a student of the Komsomol. The Komsomol is the Young Communist League of the former Soviet Union. So ideologically, she is fine-tuned. Ideologically, she is fine-tuned. At independence, she held a number of portfolios. Of course, even in exile, she was a member of the Pan-African Women's Organization. Here, she was Minister of Gender, Women and Child Abuse. She was Minister of Tourism. So she understands economic diplomacy. She understands the influence that economy has on international relations. And she understands the influence that politics has on the market. She became also Minister of International Relations, fully equipped in multilateralism, bilateralism, international systems. She was Deputy Prime Minister. So she understands how government works. She understands the administration processes. She understands the link between the executive and the legislature. She understands the link between the executive and the people that elect the party. Then currently, she is the Vice President of the Republic of Namibia. Literally, in the shoes of leading this country. And on 21st March 2025, she will graduate. And that is the graduation ceremony I am inviting the two of you to come and attend. And lastly, I want to promise you, and this is a promise, that you check with me on the 28th of November 2024, in about 29 days from today, the Swapo Party will overwhelmingly win both the presidential and the National Assembly elections. In spite of all the noise fanned from Britain, from the USA, from wherever, from all conglomerates of like-minded political prostitutes, we will have a two-thirds majority, and we will implement every single comma in that manifesto. That I guarantee you.
Thank you. I think we run up really with the last, because you touched that point. You touched the point of Western systems actually, micromanaging,
Yes.
as you put it. And Maponga, I have a question for you. That was one of the questions that you thought, or should have been the nail, like, how is Swapo going to decolonize its manifesto from Western interference in the elections and the way forward? Now, what did you expect if you were Dr. Mobito? How would you answer to that? It was a question for you, but I want you to answer that question. How would you decolonize? Because already we see it when they already start, or apparently before you hear elections are rigged or the right candidates were not in place or something like that. And just the media reporting on all these issues, when African medias are not reporting to condemn whether who wins the US or Western election, how would you respond to that? Unmute, please.
It takes political will, Dr. Tatah. It takes political will. And if we believe in democracy, this is my 2 cents. If we believe in democracy and the people say that they don't want this, then why do we use the same democratic constitution to oppress the will of the people? This is the conundrum I've never been able to understand. That you walk up to Ugandans say we don't want homosexuality. And someone walks up and says, but the constitution says. But the people say, okay, we don't want it, change it. No, but the law can. Then we end up again running like a dog chasing its own tail. And with the commitment that we have from Dr. Mubita and the Swapo liberation movement, making promises to the nation of Namibia, I don't know how you're going to do it, doctor. I don't know what it will take you. But sooner or later, we may want to say, here is a piece of paper, and here are the 3 million Namibians. And the 3 million Namibians say, we don't want that, we want this. Who are we as leaders to become custodians and constantly show them a piece of a book when that piece of a book is actually terrorizing and reducing their happiness and freedom in their own country? So I think this is a tricky part, because in all these oppositions, we've seen it in Zimbabwe, we've seen it in other places in the world, in Congo, in Mozambique. The third force is always there. The third force is always there. And the third force is not there for our progress. The third force is there because they fail to do business with the legitimate government. So they will fuel illegitimate opposition leaders to come in and disturb and destabilize the ruling and the running party. I want to challenge all the young people in Namibia, all these old people who are Dr. Mubita and everyone, they will go where all other old people go. It's a fact. And we will have failed as young people if we leave old people to plan for the future. And we will not be there in the future. And they will not be there in the future themselves. So it's high time that the young people stand up on their loins, join the ranks of reputable political parties, get into the system there, and implement the changes that you want, influence the system to deliver what you wanted to deliver for you. That will be my message for young people. And I was very disappointed when I came for the manifesto launch, that many young people did not take this manifesto launch seriously. They did not turn up. They had babalazi, they went drinking on Sunday, come Monday morning, when the conference is starting, they drag their feet to come to the very institution which affects their jobs, affects their health, affects their land, affects their health, affects their education, and you abscond, and yet you wake up in the morning to go to work. And that which influences and affects your work, you're not interested in changing the machinery for your good. I want to challenge all Namibians, particularly the young people, get involved in politics, influence the system to benefit you and build the future that you want. I thank you.
Thank you so very much. We're coming to the end of the show. Please, I know you've been watching us from different channels, and we really hit a 1K viewer. On the platform of the Swapo Facebook page, I want to congratulate all of you for coming. And I see a lot of young people that are commenting and actually being active on this conversation. Please like and subscribe to Pan-African Daily TV YouTube channel for more upcoming really powerful sessions with Swapo, and how we are going to stay constantly for 29 days on our feet to make sure that we implement this manifesto, that we connect with other young people around Africa and begin to share that knowledge and that pride. Thank you so very much, Dr. Mobito. I love a lot of things that you said here. This is a production that we're going to reproduce, and everyone that missed this show, you're going to watch it and watch it again. And King Maponga, we are looking forward on Friday to have you here with the opposition leader of Swapo, not Swapo, of Frelimo in Mozambique after their elections. And the good news that I read today, you know, apart from the rioting and some of the issues that always come with elections, is that now both the party leader or the president, even though the results have not been, and the opposition, they're willing to have talks together. I think that's another matured political stage that African, after elections, they're not going to the street or hating each other, but they want to sit down again and say, all right, even if we didn't achieve this, we can work together for that. So I said, big up to Frelimo, Mozambique. We're going to have you on the show on Friday. And again, as usual, my people, King Maponga is going to be our reference and our questionnaire, and the guy who bumps in, you know, radical. We have to scatter everything and rebuild it in 7 days. Shout out to Farmers of Thought. Farmers of Thought, all of you that are watching us here and following King Maponga Joshua loyally, diligently on all his million viewers platforms. You've always stood the point of test and say, that is our leader. And the next question will be coming up. When is King Maponga going to start a party? And that party is going to be a One Africa party. So we'll also be having that conversation not so soon, not so long from now. So I want to thank all of you amazing watchers. Even as we still talking, we still have about 500 people still watching. Nobody wants to leave the conversation, because Swapo, as we said, is the new star on Africa's heaven that is connecting the liberation movement, like he said, and we're going to get a powerful Queen Mother on that place. And we know with the Queen Mother as the leader, Queen Netumba is going to sit on that leading, and we're going to get a Pan-African Daily TV. I mean, I'm not arguing. That's a mother, that's a woman. That's how we know how to roll. That's how we know how to, you know, get engaged. And so I cannot wait to have you guys again on the show next week. Dr. Mubita, King Maponga, again, big up to you people on the same conversation. Swapo party in Namibia sets the agenda with these two gentlemen. Please check out our newsletter. I don't know whether it's going to be a Wednesday or a Thursday, but I think we already talked about it to get it going until we get on. So thank you so very much. Thank you, all my commentators, all the viewers in this show. Everything was so good. And I wish you all a pleasant evening. And thank you for being here again. Bye. Good night. Wonderful. So thank you, people. Yes, that's the what we call the game changer on Pan-African Daily TV. It's not just going to be a walk in the park. It's not just going to be blah, blah, blah. It's going to be serious things. It's very important. I just want to round it up to make you understand, why are we focusing on these manifestos? Now, elections are going all around the world, you know, whether it's in the United States or on the continent of Africa, and never have the people who have the right to question what they put in this manifesto. People don't basically even know. A lot of people don't know what is a manifesto, what is inside. And it's a constitutional right of the citizens of any country to know what is included in this manifesto. But us, as the media, and the responsibility of the people is also to follow these agendas. We've been talking about everything, try to heal, try to build ourselves. We can never heal fully when we still have bad leadership on the continent and doing things that don't work in the interest of their people. Why I love this Swapo and the other government, this and the other parties, these are liberation movements. These are the parties, the original parties that had to fight that had to fight to get their independence from the colonizers. Yes, they are still going through a lot. Like you heard Dr. Mubita said, it's not easy after 60 years to detach these colonial systems, as we're still saying, because in any way, in as much as we don't produce our money, we don't have our currency, of course, we don't have our independence, like can take care of our infrastructures, particularly the money, the language, the one passport. We don't have it. We can never completely be free. But we trust them that they're walking in the right direction. And people, please join me with this gentleman who is rising up. And he's going to tell us again the story of Mozambique and Frelimo. And we also looking forward to get the Queen Mother. Sometime I'll talk to Dr. Mobito about, the incoming president, if she would really, if we will be honored to have that vice president still in office, before he becomes the president of Namibia, to address us here, right? That is going to be the biggest. And I think Dr. Mobita is going to make that work. So thank you so very much, my people. As we go to bed, we make sure we keep, putting our hands crossed for our liberty, our freedom, our oneness, our unity, our solidarity with one another. So Asante Sana, see you on Friday, because we have a walking session to study the situations out there. And we'll be back on Friday. Thank you so very much. Good night. Bye.
You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tatah. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherlands calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 # 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.